Welcome back to the show. November is Financial Literacy Month, and I know a lot of people probably overlook it and say, you know what, I've got complete control of my finances. But when we look at, the state of inflation that we're seeing now, and food prices and fuel prices and rents going up, it's so important to have this conversation. And my next guest, well, you'll recognize him, Andre Bolduc, Senior Vice President, Licensed Insolvency Trustee with BDO Debt Solutions. Welcome back. It's great to have you back. We've talked a lot about budget, but today we want to talk more about credit ratings and credit scores. How important is that really in your financial, portfolio?
Yeah. Well, as part of Financial Literacy Month, the theme this week, there's 4 of them, is about managing debt. And often when we talk about managing debt, we're talking about budgeting, not to overextend yourself and all those things. But one thing that people often overlook, it's important to manage your debt in order to keep a good credit rating. And why this is a factor is if you don't have a good credit rating and you need credit later on, it's going to impact how much you pay for credit and what you can get.
Interesting.
And the worse your credit rating is, the more it's going to cost you, because you're going to pay more interest, and it impacts your budget.
Yeah. How do you get a good credit rating? Because I think you need credit to get a credit rating, right? To a certain extent, right?
Yeah, we often see people coming out of a bankruptcy or consumer proposal like, I'm never going to use credit again. That's not exactly a good strategy, because to get a credit rating, you must use credit, but you must use it responsibly,
right,
to show that you can handle it. So first you have to use it, and then you have to use it properly. And oftentimes, people are like, well, I pay all my bills on time, make the minimum payments, I don't skip anything. That's just 1/3 of your score. That's about 35%.
Okay.
And one area that people often overlook is called utilization, and that's 30% of your score. And basically what that is if you've got $10,000 of limit or room on your credit, and let's say you're using $5,000 of that, you're at 50% utilization. So when people use more than 50%, it actually harms your score.
Really?
And it's recommended that you
even if you pay it off monthly?
If you pay it off monthly before it's reported, you're fine, because then your utilization is 0 if you pay it off in full. But if you're constantly at the limit and only making minimum payments, your utilization is way up there.
How long does it take to fix your credit rating if it is poor?
Well, generally, like I said, your payment history is 35%. So you have to be, 100% on your payment history, typically 2 years.
Okay.
Another 15% of your credit score is the length of your credit and your good payment history. So
how do you find out what your credit rating is?
Good question.
Because I've seen commercials, right? Yeah. And they have the fancy app or whatever. Hey, look at my credit score. But I mean,
it's never been easier.
Okay.
Like with a lot of the banks now, like BMO, CIBC, TD, Scotia, you can get it for free on there.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's linked to TransUnion, and it's the same score and the same report you would get straight on TransUnion. Also, the other credit bureau, Equifax, you can get your credit bureau free there.
Okay.
You don't have to pay the monthly product. You have to dig a little bit under their website.
Okay.
But you can get it for free. You'll get your score. It's also important to get that. And there's also fintechs, Credit Karma, and they're linked with TransUnion.
Okay.
And there's also Borrowell. They're linked with Equifax. With the fintechs, if you don't mind sharing their information with them, it's a very useful tool. They use that information to sell you other products.
Of course they would. When it comes to your credit score, credit rating, do you think, because I don't know what mine is, do you think that's sort of the rule and not the exception, that most of us don't even have a clue what our credit rating is?
I think a lot of people get it when they apply for credit, and then there's an issue. They'll be told, oh, here's what your score, or there's an issue with a collections, but they don't actually see it. So I encourage people to pull their own bureau and look at it. There's often mistakes in there. It's important to correct those. Don't wait until you need the credit to get it corrected, because it does take time.
How can somebody like yourself, as an insolvency trustee, help with this? I imagine that you coach people throughout that entire consumer proposal process or bankruptcy, right? Yeah,
we cover that in the counseling sessions, how to rebuild your credit. We do that 101 on credit rebuilding. But often we see people that have issues with their credit. So, I have a bad score, I've got these collections, I can't get on top of them. It's often a warning sign they need to come to see us or get help with that. if they can't do it themselves.
Yeah, and I mean, I know you've mentioned it before, Andre. You've been on the show in the past, but how do you help? Like, because when people see, insolvency trustee, right? They're concerned. But this is an easy process. Like, how do you work with a client to rebuild that credit?
We do a full interview. We go through your assets, your budget, and who you owe money to.
Okay.
Complete list. We'll pull a credit bureau if you're not sure what you may be liable for, and we'll go through that with you. As well, once you sign up with us, either a consumer proposal, for example, we will encourage you to pull your credit bureau. We'll look at it with you. And actually, anyone that wants us to look at their credit bureau just to get advice, I'll look at it for free, quite frankly.
Really?
Yeah.
Just lastly, again, some of those tips that we've gone over before, but managing a budget, I mean, this is the most important thing we can all do, is just having an understanding of what we're spending money on.
Absolutely. Budget, live within your means, then live below your means. That's the only way you'll save money, so you can accelerate your debt payments and save for goals and have an emergency fund.
Yeah, and we all want to have vacations and the things like that. But again, I mean, I think you really stress that. Living below your means is probably where a lot of us are at these days. Always a pleasure having you. Thanks so much, Andre.
Thank you.
All right, really appreciate it. Hey, don't go anywhere. And again, sit down with your family and have that discussion. So many couples and even families in general don't talk about finances. Sit down and have that discussion. We'll be right back after this.